for defying a congressional subpoena. And can you confirm that the House is expected to take an official position on that? And if so, what is it?
I'm going to speak on this real quick. It's only Steve Bannon and Trump supporters who seem to be held accountable for violating congressional subpoenas. I mean, Eric Holder was subpoenaed to give documents from the Obama administration, and he just straight up ignored it. We have James Clapper in congressional testimony saying that we don't spy on American citizens, and then it got leaked that they were spying on American citizens. Like I said, some people clearly above the law than others.
And the House Speaker Mike Johnson joining us live. Speaker Johnson, great to have you here. Have you given former President Trump any advice about what you think he should do on stage Thursday night?
Well, I spent some time with him over the last week, and I can tell you he's in a great mood and a great place, and I'm looking forward to the vision that he's going to cast for the country on Thursday night. I think it'll be a big night for him, and I think there'll be a stark contrast between his vision for America, this very positive vision that he wants to cast, and with really, I think, the terribly weak record of President Biden. It's hard to hide from. I think the contrast will be a stark one.
Yeah, you've previously said that you have seen a cognitive decline in President Biden, but don't you worry that you and fellow Republicans have set the bar pretty low for him?
Look, I just tell the truth, Caitlin. I mean, I have no personal animus against Joe Biden, of course. I respect the office, but I've just acknowledged what everyone sees. We can't help how we age. Everybody ages differently at a different pace. My father-in-law is the same exact age as President Biden, but he's on his A game. He works 12 hours a day, runs his small business that he's been running for years, and he's vibrant, and he can do almost anything seemingly. And President Biden cannot. I mean, that's what people see, and so it's a dangerous thing. I take no pleasure in saying it because our adversaries see that as well.
I mean, Mike Johnson makes a great point there. There's nothing wrong with getting old. But when you're doing the hardest job in the world, which is the presidency of the United States, it's very visible that Joe Biden is struggling with his age. It's obvious that he's having cognitive problems. The reason he wasn't prosecuted for the classified documents he took home was, quote, he was a sympathetic old man with memory problems. But they always seem to find a way to prosecute Trump. But putting that aside, I believe the Democrats should have replaced Joe Biden at this point, whether it's with Gavin Newsom, but God forbid Kamala Harris, because I think Joe Biden's actually better than Kamala Harris on that debate stage, even though he's probably loaded up with drugs like Adderall. And the one thing about Trump that I think was a positive in his camp was I think a lot of world leaders thought he was crazy, and that's why they didn't do anything during his first term. Anyone notice there wasn't really any new wars under Trump? But now the world's on fire under Joe Biden, and I do think there's an element of people seeing weakness in this because Israel keeps sticking their thumb in his eye saying, we're going to do whatever we want, we're just going to ignore the United States. Joe Biden told Iran not to retaliate against Israel after they killed some of their generals in a Syrian embassy. They seem to not listen to the United States versus I think if Donald Trump was president, he said something. Number one, I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu would pick a public fight with Trump. And number two, Iran would legitimately be afraid, hey, if we do anything against Israel, we're probably going to get bombed back into the Stone Age by the U.S.
Some of the rhetoric, Speaker Johnson, I mean, just knowing you and how you conduct yourself, do you think some of the rhetoric is out of line when people from Trump's team are suggesting that Trump himself, that Biden is going to be on cocaine when he's on that debate stage Thursday night?
Look, there's a lot of things that are said in jest. Of course, no one expects that Joe Biden would be on cocaine, but they do ask questions, and I think they're objectively, I think it makes sense why people are asking, will he be on some sort of energy drinks or something, okay? Look, his energy levels, you can see, vary depending on what format he's in and what forum, and, we expect that he'll do what he did at the State of the Union. He had a lot of energy that night, so that's the Joe Biden I expect to see. The question is, can he stay for 90 minutes on that stage and go toe-to-toe with President Trump, who, as you know, goes to rallies and talks for 2 hours on end without any break and any notes, so it'll be a very interesting thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, the allegations just about drugs have just been, frankly, ridiculous and obviously are baseless.
I love how they just dismiss it outright when Donald Trump asks for a drug test. Why is it wrong for him to ask for a drug test? Don't get me wrong, I definitely think Donald Trump probably takes Sudafed before debates, but putting that aside, I guarantee you Donald Trump could debate Joe Biden completely sober. I do not think Joe Biden could debate Donald Trump right now at his age completely sober. But it's interesting to see mainstream media being like, how dare they ask for a drug test? They just expect the underlings like us who work in like hospitals, for instance, where we had to pee in a cup to get a job. But if you want to be the president of the United States, you don't need to take a drug test.
Well, but let me ask you about something that's happening on Capitol Hill, because you've vowed previously to push back on Donald Trump's prosecutions. You suggested that the funding of the special counsel's office could be an opportunity for that. But Republican appropriators are not attempting to defund Jack Smith in their latest proposal today. How come?
Well, there's a lot of talk about how we get control of the out-of-control special counsels, and I think many of the abuses that we've seen in the system. There's a lot of frustration about that, and it's not just House Republicans, it's all the American people. I'm traveling around the country. I've done campaign events in over 130 cities now in 30 states in the last 6 months, and there's real frustration about that. People see a two-tiered system of justice. That's how they describe it themselves. It's not a Republican talking point. So we've got to bring accountability because that's the role of Congress under the Constitution.
I have no problem if you're going to go after former presidents who have violated the law. The problem is I hate selective outrage, so do it consistently. So if Joe Biden takes home classified documents he's not supposed to and then tells his ghostwriter like, hey, I have classified documents I'm not supposed to hold on to, be consistent. Go after Joe Biden the way you're going after Donald Trump. Same thing with the violations of the Bush administration where we have enough evidence, I would say, they lied us into the war in Iraq and they knew there were no WNDs, but Obama never prosecuted. So we've already set the precedence we can lie people into war. I mean, look at the Gulf of Tonkin incident with LBJ. You can lie us into war and there is no consequences to it. And when they say there's two tiers of justice, I disagree. Okay, there are three tiers of justice in this country. There's the one for you and me and everyone else. There's the super rich. Donald Trump falls in that category. And then there are the people who can get away with whatever they want. Bush, Cheney, Obama, Hillary Clinton destroying subpoenaed evidence. There are clearly people above the law, but they're only going after Donald Trump.
It's not in the underlying bill. I mean, an amendment could be added, but if you really wanted it, you would just put it in the underlying bill. But if it is ultimately in there, is that just a messaging tactic because it's not actually going to go anywhere and defund the special counsel's office?
No, look, it's not a question about what we want. We definitely want to bring the special counsel under control, but there's differences of opinion, even among House Republicans, on the best way to do that. Do you
But what's
defund
your
the entire
opinion? Do
special
you believe
counsel
that you can do that,
program?
that you have the ability to do that?
No, look, I think there is a role for a special counsel function, and the purpose of it is because, the Department of Justice is an executive agency branch, obviously an executive agency in the executive branch, and sometimes there's a conflict of interest. Let's say, for example, Republicans may want to investigate something that Joe Biden did, after he's in office, like they've done with President Trump. We have a special counsel right now that's working on the Hunter Biden matter. So the reason you have special counsels is because sometimes there's a conflict of interest within DOJ and the White House. So it has an important function, but it has been abused. I mean, I think Jack Smith has abused his position and what he's done, and I think that bears investigation. I think the funding streams is an important part of that, and that's what Congress is very carefully and deliberately debating.
Here's the problem in this country now. Everyone has hated Donald Trump so much that they have Trump derangement syndrome and they don't realize the precedents they're setting by going after their political opponents. I'm all for this if you actually do it consistently, but it's just a one-time thing for Donald Trump. But now the Republicans are looking at it and saying, well, you tried to impeach Donald Trump for no reason. We're going to try to impeach Joe Biden for no reason. So careful the precedents you want to set, Democrats, because every 4 or 8 years, it's just going to be turned back on you at this point, because before we weren't going after each other, and now I see the reason they weren't doing that, because it's like, hey, if we start going after people who we disagree with, then they're probably going to start doing it to us. And maybe that's why President Obama didn't go after George Bush, because he wanted to do NSA spying, and he wanted to drone strike American citizens without trial. So it seems like the executive power has been out of control for a very long time, and we've had this precedent where we're just not going to go after former administrations, but since they're only doing it to Donald Trump and not looking at President Obama or George Bush, who've done horrendous things for the security state in this country. And also, people who keep playing these videos saying Donald Trump said he was going to prosecute Hillary Clinton. He didn't actually try to prosecute Hillary Clinton. One, because he didn't want to set the precedents we're in now. And two, Donald Trump knew that he probably would have to do horrible things in the name of the security state. But no, it's only Donald Trump who needs to be held accountable. We'll just ignore all the other political elites who have been doing whatever they want.
Are you still debating it if it's not going to be in that underlying proposal that came out from the House Appropriations Committee tonight? I mean, you previously suggested that would be a way to go after Jack Smith. So do you not believe any longer that that is a way to go after the special counsel's office here?
No, but it's not about what my personal belief is. It's about what we can actually get enacted into law. And obviously, Chuck Schumer in the Senate would probably not take that up. You and I can both guess that. And I'm sure President Biden would not sign it into law, right? So we have to look at what's reality. I have the smallest margin in U.S. history for about 4.5 months here. I had a 1-vote margin. We are now at 3 because we had a new member take an oath of office tonight, a new Republican. So I'm excited about that. But look, it's the reality of the math that I've got to deal with every day. And what can we actually get enacted? We're trying to get appropriations bills done that reflect our priorities. And if we have things in there that make that tougher, we've got to carefully debate and consider those. That's what's happening right now. That's part of the process.
I feel bad for Mike Johnson because he's been working working with a one-vote majority in Congress, so how much can you really get done? I mean, it's the most do-nothing Congress we've ever had. And he actually recognizes how the government works, how things had to pass through the House and then get sent to the Senate and actually need to be signed by the President of the United States. But he's dealing with extremists within his own party, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who doesn't understand how the government works, apparently, because she's like, I want everything. Well, you barely control one of the houses of Congress, so you're not going to get everything. Also, Mike Johnson said he was going to get border security in this last bill that passed with all this foreign aid. It seems like we have money for other countries, but we can't even secure our own southern border. I mean, yet people like Ann Coulter going after Donald Trump saying he didn't build the wall. It's not like he has to deal with Mitch McConnell. It's not like he has to deal with Paul Ryan. It's not like the president can do whatever he wants, but clearly we have extremists in the party who don't seem to know how the government works.
We've seen that playing out. Marjorie Taylor Greene tonight was saying it was a complete and utter failure of the Republican-controlled House by not doing that. She said she'll let you know that. But let me ask you about something else, Speaker Johnson, because we understand this evening that the House of Representatives is weighing in and actually taking an official position on what we're on the verge of seeing happening on Monday. Steve Bannon reporting to prison for defying a congressional subpoena and failing to respond to that. Can you confirm that the House is expected to take an official position on that? And if so, what is it?
I'm going to speak on this real quick. It's only Steve Bannon and Trump supporters who seem to be held accountable for violating congressional subpoenas. I mean, Eric Holder was subpoenaed to give documents from the Obama administration, and he just straight up ignored it. We have James Clapper in congressional testimony saying that we don't spy on American citizens, and then it got leaked that they were spying on American citizens. Like I said, some people clearly above the law than others.
Yeah, I can confirm that. We'll be filing a brief in that legal proceeding. And we think that's really important to do. We think the previous statement of the House under Speaker Pelosi was incorrect. We do not believe the January 6th special committee was properly constituted. We don't think it followed the House rules. And now we're finding under our own investigation that they may have in fact covered up some evidence. That's a great concern to a lot of people. You'll see a lengthy report come out on that. But in the meantime, when they're using that to prosecute people, we think it's important for the House's position to be known, the current House, and that is that we don't believe that that was a proper committee, properly constituted, that did appropriate work. The court should take that into consideration, and I think we have an obligation to make that position known.
Do you worry that that will undercut your ability to enforce congressional subpoenas in the future, though?
No, not at all. You got two totally different matters. I mean, we're going to court, by the way, to enforce the subpoena against Merrick Garland. The Judiciary Committee is going to proceed in the court to make sure that the audio tape of the lengthy interview with the special counsel and President Biden is turned over to Congress. We have a right to see it. In fact, we have an obligation, a necessity to hear that audio, to make sure that it matches with the written transcript that Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, turned over to the House.
Okay.
You got a conflict between the two branches. We're using Article 1 of the Constitution as we're supposed to do.
Obviously, we're not going to prosecute Joe Biden for taking classified documents, and we're going to take the special counsel's word for saying that he's a sympathetic elderly man with memory problems. We should be able to see that in the transcript, and that should be public, because the public just sees that you're going after Donald Trump for something that Joe Biden technically did too.